The Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab episode 842 for Monday, November 9th, 2020.
Welcome to the Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab, the show where you send in your questions, your tips, your cool stuff found. We take them all. We answer your questions. We offer some questions of our own sometimes even. Share your tips, share our cool stuff found. The point is we put it all together. We mix it up into an agenda so that as we go through it, we can each learn at least 5 new things. That's right, 5 new things. Every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include Readdle at Readdle.com, Barebones software with BBEdit at barebones.com, and expressvpn.com/MGG with their trusted server technology. Very cool stuff. We'll talk more about all of this, each of those, as we get further into the episode. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in Fairfield, Connecticut, this is Jonathan Braun.
Hey, man. How are we doing today? A little bit of summer in New England weather-wise lately, which is nice.
Yes, unseasonably warm.
Yeah, I'll take it. With you know, the outdoors being a great place to be able to go. It's nice when it's warm. So, yep. That is good. You know what else is nice is we've got some quick tips here, Mr. Braun. I think we can dive right into those. Matt will start us out, and Matt starts us by saying that I have a couple of USB drives strung off of my DiskStation to back things up like my Plex library. Since it's so huge, I needed more than one external drive, but my DiskStation only has 2 USB ports. Being smart, I figured I would just grab a USB hub, plug it in, and use that. I happen to have a couple of USB 3 hubs, and I tried those, and drives would start backing up and then disappear. After doing a little Google foo, he says, it turns out Synologies are only compatible with USB 2 hubs, which is easy enough because you can pick those up in any grocery store checkout for about $3 now. He says, so I grabbed one, plugged it in, and have been happily backing up for weeks. He says, of course, it's backing up at USB 2 speeds, but who cares? It works. So you're right. Some of the ports on the Synology are 2 versus 3. And I think you're right about the hubs being limited to 2. But like you said, you know, if you're just backing up, the speeds are, I guess they're all right. So thanks for the heads up on that, Matt. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Braun?
No, I think I have one of those too. And yeah, if I recall, the USB ports on the front are, I think, 3, and the ones on the back are 2.
For your model, sure. Yeah, that's right. But they are different. Yes. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. For sure. Hey, a quick tip that I came across this week that I mentioned to members of my family, and they looked at me like I had concocted a potion right before their eyes. We were talking about email addresses and wanting to give, well, I think one of them wanted to sign up for a free trial again of something. And they're like, oh, so I just need to use a different email address. And I said, sure. Or you can use, you know, let's say it's, you know, our email here is feedback@macgeekgab.com. I said, well, if you've already signed up with feedback@macgeekgab.com, you could sign up with feedback plus new at macgeekgab.com. And that's a new email address. And they said, what? And I'm like, right. Because if you use Gmail, any form of Gmail, Google Apps for domains or just a regular Gmail account, you can add plus whatever you want before the @ sign in your email. And that will all go to the same account. Google will just funnel it all there. Of course, you can put filters on it and redirect it wherever you want. But it is a different email address, unless, of course, the service provider knows to look for that and then says, no, we've already had this email address. You know, you don't get to do that again. But so, yeah, if your email address is myemail@gmail.com, you could do my email plus new @gmail.com, or, you know, whatever you want, however you like to do that. So there you go. Little quick tip. I assume you knew about that one, John, right?
Yeah. Never really used it, but
yeah,
heard about it.
Yeah. Well, it's handy for these types of things where it's like, oh, wait, I need to do a thing. And like, okay, you know, you're not thinking about, oh, what other addresses do I have? It's like, let me just make up a new one. It's right there. It's good. You have a little anti-spam thing, don't you, John, for us?
Yes, I do. So if you were around in the pre-iCloud days, whatever they called it, .me, so I have 3 Apple addresses, .mac, .iCloud, and .me.
So at mac.com, at iCloud.com, at me.com, right?
Right.
Okay.
Here's the problem. At some point, my .iCloud address got out on the spam circuit, and that address, I don't use it, and I don't use the .me address, but there's no way to disable them as far as I know, and if there is, please let me know. But yeah, it's either all or nothing, and the thing is, I want that address.
Right.
So I'm getting spam almost exclusively at this iCloud.com address.
Okay.
And even though I tried training it, it still gets through. So how to deal with this? Well, you could write a rule, but these guys are kind of tricky in that you can filter on a lot of things with rules in mail, but they don't include the to address in the header. They mask it.
Sure.
So I can't filter on that.
Okay.
But you can. So here's the secret, is that address is in there, but it's buried in one of the headers.
Okay.
What are you talking about, John? So step number 1 is that if you want to see all of the information about a piece of email within mail, you can go to View, Message, Show All Headers, or just All Headers, and that will show you all of the headers. And then I was looking through and I did find the header that had my whatever.iCloud address.
Sure.
So what you do, let me go back to mail here to bring it up.
Is it
so what you
okay?
do is you can create a rule. Come on.
Is it the delivered-to header that you're looking for? Is that what it is?
No.
Okay.
No. So the thing is, there are some headers that you can filter on.
Right.
This one was not in them. So you can say edit header list. And the one that I found that works, Dave, is original-recipient. So what I did is I created a rule saying if original-recipient contains RFC 822 semicolon whatever at iCloud.com, it just throws it in junk immediately.
Nice.
Which is exactly what I want, because I don't use that address. And if anything arrives there, I wish I could just disable that address so they would just bounce. But
you can't.
Again, I don't think there's a way to do that.
Right. I'm looking here. Yeah, because I know I've done this with delivered-to. Yeah, so I think if you're doing it with iCloud, original-recipient is the header that iCloud servers put out there. If you're doing this with Google, delivered-to is the header that is put out there. Because I'm not seeing an iCloud, I'm not seeing original-recipient when I look at the headers for mail that has come in to me, not on my iCloud account, on a different account. So I think that's the key. So yeah, set it up. Well, I would set up, figure out which one looks for you. So I like this. Yeah, look in the headers, find the one that contains that buried address, and then, like you said, add that header to your headers list, and then filter on it. I like it. It's good, man. It's good. Really good. Cool. All right. Well, fun stuff, man. Yeah. Keeps you spam free, spam less. We don't want to say spam free. So, Okay. Jeremy brings us one, John. He says, a quick tip for those that don't know about it, which is exactly what quick tips are. Pressing Control and Option and then clicking on the triangle next to a folder in the Finder will expand or close that folder and all of the subfolders beneath it. It can be a wonderful thing or, of course, a curse, depending on how much data you have. Yeah, so, you can twist open a folder by clicking that triangle. If you hold Control and Option while you click on that triangle, Jeremy says it will open or close everything, which can be really handy. Yeah, for sure. I always know that's possible. I always forget, and I have to experiment by holding down different modifier keys. So maybe next time I'll remember, or maybe next time I'll do exactly what I've done. But at least knowing it's available is the key. So thanks, Jeremy. Pretty good. Any thoughts on that one, John, before we move on?
Nope.
Okay. So I was talking with my son this week, and I have some advice for you all in the form of a quick tip. Check your digital couch cushions. And by that, I mean, you could check your real couch cushions or car seat cushions and see. I don't think we sit in car seats. That's weird. We sit in the seat in a car when we drive, but we don't sit in a car seat. This is a whole different tangent we're going to need to take ourselves on at some point, John. Because I haven't sat in a car seat in years, at least not to my recollection. Anyway, when you check the cushions, you find money. Well, what about your digital couch cushions, right? What about your PayPal account, your Venmo account, your Apple Pay Cash account, your old Bitcoin wallet, right? All of these things, at least if you're like me, you have like a little amount in there that you maybe received or you spent and you didn't really think about it. And then you lose track of it if you're not using it regularly. And it can be kind of a nice thing to dig in there and find, hey, look, I've got, $20 here, $60 there, $72 here. And holy crap, look what happened to my Bitcoin wallet since I looked at it 4 years ago. Like that can be a really nice little surprise if you happen to have one of those. So check your digital couch cushions as we head into, especially as we head into the holiday season. It might make life a little bit easier, soften the blow a little bit, as it were. So just don't forget to check your digital couch cushions. There can be fun little things in there in the form of currency. So, or cryptocurrency, as the case may be. Pretty good, right, John?
Yeah, I use mint.com.
Okay.
It doesn't get everything, but it gets most things.
Interesting.
Like I have it tied into my PayPal, and it will warn me if certain accounts are getting low.
Okay.
Which is nice. So it's like, hey, you have like under $10 in your checking account. You may want to take care of that.
You might want to deal with that. Yeah.
A lot of banks, unless you have a big pile of dough with them, they're going to hit you with some sort of penalty or fee if you don't have enough money in your account. So.
Sure. Well, interesting. Yeah, that's pretty good. So Mint, if we mix this all together, Mint will aggregate your digital couch cushions for you. Oh, I like it.
And it actually, and here's the cool part, so it will actually show your net worth, which is also nice. So it basically takes your assets, which could be like your house and your savings and your stocks and your liabilities, like your mortgage, and does the math and says, hey, here's how much you're worth. And let's hope that number is positive.
That's right. Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts about that. Like having that number be positive isn't always a good thing. If you're
well, then you file Chapter 11, right?
No. Like if you owe more on your house than you have, like there can be nice write-offs there. But anyway, right. But Quicken also does this. Quicken has done this for years. And I know Quicken bought Mint years ago, but yeah, that net worth graph can be a nice thing to see sort of over time. Yeah, that's pretty good. As Paul Franz in the chat room at live.macgeekgab.com says, bouncing balls are good, bouncing checks are bad. Yeah, there you go. And Kenny in New Jersey says, Mint is cool, but Personal Capital is my favorite. So we will put a link to we'll put a link to Quicken and also to Personal Capital in the show notes there. Pretty good stuff. All right. This is good. See, I like this. I knew talking about the digital couch cushions would get us would net an interesting conversation. So yeah, it's good. More on that? Time to move on?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Cool. All right. Dr. Mac has a cool stuff found sent in that really ties into a quick tip that I wanted to share, but we will go first with Dr. Mac's cool stuff found. He says he's got two, in fact. First up, he says, is TextSniper, a terrific little program I didn't know I needed until I started using it. It lets you capture text from any image and converts it into editable text via OCR so you can paste it into any document or web form. For example, when someone sends me a picture of a receipt with a tracking number, I capture it with TextSniper and then paste it into the tracking form. Slick. He says, I also love the way TextSniper helps me avoid typing or mistyping serial numbers. Now I just shoot a picture and TextSniper converts it instantly to editable text I can paste wherever I like. He says it certainly is a one-trick pony, but its trick, instantly converting image text into editable or pastable text, saves me time, effort, and mistakes. I was skeptical at first, but I found TextSniper useful more often than I ever expected. I love the use case with the serial number. These kinds of things. So, I mean, Dr. Mac, he obviously he's a publisher, writer, creator for a living. He understands the value of an example to set these things in stone. And I love it when any of you folks, and in fact, most of you, when you send in your cool stuff found, you send it in because you're excited about how it helps with a certain purpose. And Dr. Mac, of course, has done that. Your water bottle makes a lot of noise, John. And so, yeah. So thank you for sending this in, Dr. Mac. Number 2, Paste, he says. That's the name of the utility. Moving right along, he says, I still don't understand why the Mac only has a single clipboard, and I have been using various utilities to extend the clipboard's usefulness since time immemorial. My latest crush is called Paste, and it is everything I've wanted in a clipboard history/manager and more. It does everything I need from a multiple clipboard manager standpoint, including the ability to save and recall every item copied or pasted for the past day, week, month, or forever. It also lets me organize items into pin boards, which are like folders for saved clipboards. But there are a lot of utilities that save multiple clipboards and have the ability to organize them. Paste stands out for its slick user interface and large, easy to distinguish previews. But the difference between Paste and most other clipboard utilities is real-time iCloud syncing. Why? Because it enables me to see and use every item I've copied or cut on my Mac, on my iDevice, and vice versa. And so you'll see everything you've cut or copied on your iDevice on your Mac too. While both utilities are reasonably priced, TextSniper is $6.49, Paste is 99 cents a month. He says, I'd be remiss not to mention that they are both included with your SetApp subscription. So if you have SetApp, you have these utilities already. And so thank you for sending both of those through, Dr. Mac. That is super handy. I wanted to kind of extend that, the quick tip, and it's just perfect that Bob sent in a clipboard manager. I was talking with someone this week because I'm always singing the praises of a clipboard manager. And it's one of those things. It's like, it's similar to the question, why would I need 5G? Everything I do right now doesn't need any faster speeds or higher density devices or lower latency on my wireless connection, right? And it's one of those things, because you don't have it, you don't know why you might need it. Or we as a people don't have it. And so, we aren't using the use cases of it. Well, with the clipboard manager, it's much easier, but it is the same kind of thing. People say, well, I copy and I paste. What would I need a clipboard manager for? And it's a valid question, because unless you're using one, you won't have the use case to need one. It's simply how it works. And so I was trying to explain to someone what the beauty is of the clipboard manager. And I will break my own rule here. Instead of giving a specific example, which I've given many times, or specific examples, I will zoom out and give sort of the meta example. And it gives me the freedom of non-destructive copying. Now let's think about that. Every time with the Mac's normal clipboard, every time we hit copy or cut, whatever was on the clipboard is destroyed. So I would always be thinking, what did I have on the clipboard that I needed, right? Why did I copy that to the clipboard? Why did I cut that to the clipboard? And am I going to need it? Do I need to go put it somewhere? So now with the clipboard history manager, I have the freedom of non-destructive copying. Every time I copy something, it's just putting it on the stack. And calling it a stack is mostly incorrect, although there are some clipboard managers that work like stacks. Mostly it's just a history. And when you paste something, it doesn't pull it from the stack, but it is going into that history. And then you can go and say, oh, I want to copy this. My favorite example, to get specific, is when I have a bunch of things in, say, an email or a note somewhere, and then I need, or even a bunch of things on one web page that I need to enter or paste into another web page. It's really handy to be able to hit copy 3 times on one web page, move to the other, and then paste those 3 things in without having to flip-flop back and forth till the day I die. So, non-destructive copying. That's my pitch for you all this week. So, I don't know.
Okay.
Have you messed with Paste yet, or any clipboard history yet, John?
There's one that's part of that Golden Chaos, is it? Yeah, they have, it's not enabled by default, but yeah. I don't use it too much, but every now and then.
Yeah. Yeah, I recommend just having one that is there all the time so that, you can be like, oh, wait, I can go back. You will find your own use cases is what I have found. Like once I got my head in the game, and I really have only been a clipboard, multiple clipboard user for maybe 5 or 6 years. Like it hasn't been that long. But yeah, it was one of those things. Once I started doing it, it was like, oh yeah, the freedom of just copy, and then like, okay, I need that thing. Where is it? And I like the iCloud syncing idea. I sort of do that with Keyboard Maestro because it will sync to my other Macs. I won't get it for my iOS devices, but yeah, that's interesting. All right, moving on with cool stuffs found. Ian says, in terms of digital asset management, NeoFinder is an app that will trawl your hard drive or your external drives or your network attached storage drives and find all your media files, photos, movies, music, etc. It has the facility to create smart folders and groups of smart folders, albums, etc. It will sort by EXIF info and many other options. Photos can be opened in your desired editor and saved back afterwards. With a business license, you can have your catalog shared across a network using any smart folders and or albums you've created. It says, I have a Galaxy Note 9 with the PhotoSync app installed, also available for iOS. My photos automatically sync to my NAS, and NeoFinder automatically updates its catalog on a daily schedule, so all my photos appear in NeoFinder. Photos complying with any smart folder criteria are automatically included. I'm afraid that after iPhoto and Aperture and the struggles with iCloud photos on my wife's iMac, I just don't trust Apple with my photos anymore. The app, NeoFinder, is actively supported, and I've had quick response from the developer when I've had a problem. So if you want to, and he just sends us a link and all that good stuff, which of course we will put in the show notes. Thank you, Ian. Very cool stuff. I like it. John. I like media management. It's good. And things that manage automatically for us, which iCloud Photo Library does, but Ian had some troubles with it and wants to keep it in-house now. So yeah, but there's no reason this couldn't work alongside iCloud Photos too, which is pretty cool. So yeah, good. Any that trigger any thoughts or ideas?
Nope.
All right. Well, then we will keep moving on to Scott, who says, I still own a 6th generation iPod Nano. It's the one that was the size of the iPod Shuffle, but with a touchscreen. I use it to play music and listen to local FM radio. It has better battery life than the iPhone, plus it's smaller, and I can just clip it to my garments for ease of carrying. I haven't used it for a while, and not since Apple dumped iTunes management for iDevices. With an opportunity to use it coming up, I plugged the Nano into my Catalina running iMac. Not only did Catalina recognize the Nano, it remembered its automatic sync profile. I was also able to change the playlist to sync with the Nano. In other words, it just worked. Anyone with an older iDevice can continue to use it with Catalina without getting caught. That's pretty good, Scott. I have an old Nano, and I have not plugged that in to a Mac in a while. But now you've inspired me, because you're right. Like that little clip thing it's not a bad thing. Of course, with Bluetooth headphones and an Apple Watch, and there are functional replacements for this that arguably are more convenient even. But if you don't have those and you have this, nice to know that it still works and is still just as convenient. So that's pretty good. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think I recycled my very old iPods. The oldest thing I have right now is an iPod Touch 6th generation, I think, which only runs iOS 13. I think there's a 7th generation that'll run iOS 14.
Okay. Cool.
But it did what I needed it to do, which was to record a video from my vehicle. And it does that wonderfully.
Record a video? Oh, the iPod Touch. Oh, yeah. Interesting. Huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a need. I won't go into. Yeah, I think you remember the incident here. But yeah, there was somebody messing with my car, and so I'm like, well, let me run the iPod Touch, and I put it on my bracket. That's, on the windshield there. And,
Sure.
Turned it on, did what I had to do. When I came back, I had a video of the person that was messing with my car, which was my goal, and for what you pay for it. And the video was, good enough.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's HD on that one.
Yeah. Right. But still, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Huh. I feel like there's other ways to solve, like a dash cam, a motion sensor activated dash cam might be easier, so that you're not having to like scrub through all of the video to see when whatever happened. And plus you probably save some battery life and all of that too. But yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good. All right. Yeah. All right. I think we got one last cool stuff found, which listener Jonathan says, I was digging around and found a link to the Apple user group resource and how to find an Apple user group on Apple's own contacts website. He says, I didn't think that these groups existed and that Apple still had the link to their website. And so he gave it to us, which is linked from apple.com/contact. We'll put a link directly to their Find a User Group page. And yeah, user groups do exist. I wind up speaking at them a few times a year. In fact, I think later this month, in about 10 days from now, maybe. So next week, November 18th, I'm speaking at the Connecticut Mac Users Group about Plex, which I'm really excited to do. So, but of course, it's because we're in pandemic times. I'm not going to Connecticut. Then they're not attending a meeting in person either. I'm speaking remotely, which is not my favorite way to do user groups. I really do like being in person when doing that kind of, interaction, teaching, engagement kind of thing. But right now we don't get to do that. And so might as well do something on a Tuesday night. And it's nice to hang out, it's really nice to hang out with fellow, it's like what we do here, hang out with fellow Apple fans, technology fans, really. That's what it comes down to. So yeah, very cool. Nice find, Jonathan. I like it. You are welcome to join that one, of course, John, the Connecticut meeting that day. So I think it's the 18th of November. So there you go. I think it's a Zoom call. So you get to join from right where you are. I'll join from right where I am or wherever I am. I might do it from the office. I don't know. Connecticut Macintosh Connection. I believe that is correct. Dogster in the chat room at live.macgeekgab.com. Fun stuff. All right. We have 2 tips left that I wanted to share, John, or that we all wanted to share. One comes from listener Joe, who takes us back an episode or 2. He says, I know you guys were talking about QuickTime Player and using it to trim videos and how convenient it was. He says, I'd like to point out, QuickTime Player can trim. Also, it can split and rearrange sections of a video, sometimes without even needing to re-encode. For the no-encode cases, there is no generational loss of quality, and the export is extremely fast. Trim is Command T, split is Command Y. He says split does not literally split the file, but marks a range in the clip, which you can delete or reposition. In a single pass, you can trim the head and the tail, cut out sections in the middle, rearrange sections, then export the result. It works on most common codecs, including ProRes RAW and HEVC files. There's some variation based on codec and procedure. Apparently, re-encode is needed when exporting trimmed HEVC files for some reason. Likewise, it appears re-encode is done if you both trim and split an H.2 to 64 in one session. So there's some things there, but that's pretty cool. He says trimming must be done before splitting. So the procedure is to do Command T to trim the head and the tail, then use the JKL commands to navigate to the next edit point, and split with Command Y, repeat as needed, then use the mouse to select, delete, or reposition the split segments in the timeline, then export. This is based on testing with Catalina 10.15.7. However, I believe I had these features before Mojave. And he's got a Mac Most tutorial about this. So we will, it's on YouTube. So we will link to that tutorial in the show notes for sure. Wow. Thank you, Joe. That's really handy. And for those of you that don't know, I pre-record all the ad segments. Usually, I don't always get to, but it is my preference to, so that A, I get the ad spots right, but B, I can keep them nice and concise for all of you, because our job is to essentially to whet your appetite for whatever our sponsors have, not to sit here and, review their stuff for 10 minutes. A, that takes up too much time in the show, and B, it probably causes you to lose interest. But now that we've been doing video, I record the audio for the ads, trim that up nicely, then record video of usually either looking at the product or visiting the sponsor's website or whatever. But I'm feeling like, knowing that QuickTime would do all this, I wonder if I could record the audio and the video all at the same time and then just chop it up in QuickTime instead of using an audio editor. So this is something I must think about, John. I don't know. It might save me time. It might make things more efficient, which we need, which is good. I love making things more efficient. I don't know. What do you think, John? Any thoughts on this?
No.
Okay. Well, where is my next one? I thought I had a thing about troubleshooting printers here, John. And I thought I did. Yeah, there it is. Oh, yeah. Two things about troubleshooting print. We were talking about troubleshooting printers last week, John. And there are two things I wanted to mention. I actually wound up having a conversation with our own John Martellero, who was having trouble with troubleshooting his HP printer after last week's HP certificate debacle, the repair of the certificate or the reinstantiation, I don't know, whatever it is. Whatever was undone, he was still not able to print. And it was likely because of some of the troubleshooting that he wound up doing before that, which, can kind of get you into trouble sometimes, especially when you're troubleshooting something and, before we know what was happening or before we knew what was happening. So there's two steps. One we've talked about a lot on this show and is really super valuable. And that is, if you're having trouble with your printers, go into System Preferences, Printers and Scanners, and then right-click in the menu or the list of printers on the left and choose Reset Printing System. So if you don't have a right mouse button, Control-click is of course your friend. That will erase all of your printers and get you to where you might need to be in the end. So that we've found to be very helpful. And you've done that a bunch too, John, right? The Reset Printing System. Yeah, it's great. The other thing that's interesting is that there is a web interface for your printing system on your Mac. I know, this seems weird, but it is at port 631, or at least it can be at port 631 on your Mac. So if you go to localhost :631 in Safari, you can usually bring up your web printing system, even though you don't have web printers. It's interesting. But it's just how you manage what's called CUPS, the Common Unix Printing Service. Is that right, John? I know you're always good on
something like
those
that.
Things. Yeah. You can print test page from there. You can truly remove printers from there. You can do management that's a lot more granular than what you can usually do in the system preferences print dialog. So it's worth checking that out. You might need to go to the terminal and enable the web interface with a command cupsctl web interface equals yes. I will put all of this in the show notes so that you don't have to.
Okay.
So
that's why it didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's usually the trick. Although it will often show you that. So if it's not working from there, if it's not working initially, there might be something else to it. But yeah. Yeah. So it's also possible you don't have any CUPS printers running, but I think most of us do.
Oh.
So, yeah. And I think I've got the port right? CUPS printing port.
Yep.
Did that do it?
No, that works.
Okay. There you go.
CUPS.2.3.1. So.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yep. So it's an interesting little place, and there's some things, of course, you can dig around in there and break things if you like, but, that's how it goes. It's fun. Right? Fun little geeky stuff. I like to share these little geeky tips. So if you're having trouble with your printers and the general reset doesn't do it, you can dig into CUPS and see if you might be able to see what's going on truly behind the scenes. It does have all kinds of print status and everything. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I like it. All right, John. Well, we have in-house, I've been for the last almost week, been testing the new Eero Pro 6 Wi-Fi mesh system that is Wi-Fi 6 based. And I have some things that I want to share about it. The first thing that I want to do, or in fact, the next thing, because it wouldn't be the first thing, because we've already done the first thing, because the episode's already rolling. But the next thing that I want to do is talk about our sponsors for this week, if that works for you, Mr. Braun.
Dandy.
All right. Let me ask you something. What if there was somebody out there who kept a log of every single thing you did every minute of the day? That would be pretty creepy, right? Well, what if I told you that's exactly what can happen every time you go online because your ISP, like Comcast or AT&T, is allowed to store logs of every website you've ever visited and can legally sell this data to anyone they choose. And this is why ExpressVPN is fantastic, because not only does ExpressVPN reroute your internet connection through their secure servers so that your provider can't see or log or sell this data, they route it through their trusted servers. We've talked about this before. It's one of my favorite things about ExpressVPN, in addition to the fact that it's like fast and easy and one click and all of that. But their trusted servers are cool because they run off of RAM, meaning there is no place for their servers to store data permanently. If you switch off one of ExpressVPN's servers and turn it back on again, it has no record of what happened the last time it was on. So they've engineered their entire system to not be able to track you. Not only do they not want to track you, they are not able to do it. So stop letting people keep logs of what you do online. Visit expressvpn.com/MGG right now and find out how you can get 3 months for free. That's expressvpn.com/MGG. One more time, expressvpn.com/MGG to learn more. And our thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this episode. Next up is Readdle at readdle.com. Yeah, that's how you pronounce that. Readdle is a company that makes essential productivity apps, and they've had over 150 million downloads of their apps for both iOS and for Mac. Well, this week, likely to be a very important week for Apple users, and Readdle can't wait to bring their Mac apps to the new Apple Silicon. Spark lets you handle all your email accounts in a single place and collaborate on emails with your team. It is email built for the way things work today. And it's for Mac and iOS, right? So, and Android too, I think. Spark lets you take control of your inbox with intelligent email prioritization, noise reduction, and what they call the most advanced email tools at your disposal. PDF Expert from Readdle is the ultimate PDF editor that won App of the Year by Apple. And again, available for iPhone, iPad, and Mac OS. And Readdle knows how to build productivity apps, and you're going to want this stuff. Go check it out at Readdle, readdle.com. And if you've seen their stuff before, go take a second look. They are constantly updating, enhancing, and making things that you and I are going to want to use. Our thanks to Readdle for sponsoring this episode. And now, BBEdit from barebones.com. BBEdit, there are so many great things to talk about with BBEdit. I use it every day. It's always difficult for me to choose which one or two things I might tell you about when we have the pleasure of having them as a sponsor as they are today. Well, today I want to talk about their Unix commands, because it's so often that we say, oh, you've got to go in the terminal and find this file and edit it on this show, right? This is part of how we solve problems. And then that leads into a discussion of, oh, do you use like VI or Nano or Pico or Emacs? You know, and we could have a holy war about that. But there is one editor to rule them all, and it is BBEdit, because you can install BBEdit's command line tool, and then when you're in the terminal and you type BBEdit space file name, it opens in BBEdit. Not some VT100 emulated version of BBEdit. It opens in BBEdit, the graphical editor that lets you manipulate things with your keyboard and your mouse, so you're not doing this like an animal. And it's fantastic. And when you hit save, it saves it because BBEdit edits text files. So it's a text file editor. It's just the best text file editor that I've ever found, and you can use it too. Go to barebones.com, download your free copy. Every feature is free for 30 days, and then it goes into a tiered thing where a lot of the features are free, probably the ones you'll need. But if you need something else, well, then you pay for it. It's relatively inexpensive, and you're good to go. Our thanks to BBEdit and Barebones for sponsoring this episode. All right, John, we get to talk about Wi-Fi 6 again, which it seems is becoming a weekly topic, and I believe that's going to continue, or at least a recurring topic. So, yeah, I've had the pleasure of checking out the Eero Pro 6 mesh system. I've got it's a 3-unit system. Most homes, even as we found with, prior mesh, most homes probably do well with a 2-unit mesh. I've got a weird setup here with the office across the driveway, but that allows me to do some long distance testing. Now, I want to point out the thing that allowed Wi-Fi mesh to happen in the first place is Wi-Fi 5. Now, we didn't call it Wi-Fi 5 at the time. We called it Wi-Fi. We called it 802.11 AC. And what that really did for us was it gave us high-speed backhaul to happen between the mesh points, right? So assuming you don't have Ethernet in your walls, you have, your cable modem or your internet comes in somewhere, could be a cable modem, could be something else. Then you plug that into your router. And then from there, you need other points throughout the house to help blanket the home in Wi-Fi. This is what mesh does, because you can do all of that blanketing in one interface and all of the devices know about each other. But in order for that to work, they need to be able to talk to each other reliably and quickly so that when your device connects to one over there, the backhaul to your router is going quickly and efficiently and without trouble. And that's what 802.11 AC, or as we now call it, Wi-Fi 5, did for us. And that's why mesh was able to come into being. So when we take Wi-Fi 6 with speeds that are much faster than Wi-Fi 5, and we apply that to the backhaul, things get really interesting. So, now I will say on the front haul, because the only client devices that I currently have that are Wi-Fi 6 capable are my iPhones 11 and later, right? So we've got a few of those, and we can test those in the house, and it's great. And I will tell you, it's very good. Like I am getting, I'm looking at my lists here. Like I am routinely getting 850 megabits per second, both up and down, in the same room as my Wi-Fi 6 router. Now I'm testing this locally. I'm not letting the internet be involved in my speed tests when I'm doing this, because I want to test the speed of the Eeros, not the speed or the speeds of anything. And I did this last week when we were talking about the Deco Wi-Fi 6 units too. The internet can slow things down. In fact, most of us have very, very slow upstreams compared to our downstream. So when I'm testing all this stuff, I'm just doing it locally using a program called iPerf that lets me just test network speeds, which is great. And as an aside, put iPerf on your Synology. Set up a little Docker container, put iPerf there. Works great. And you've always got an iPerf server running. So yeah, so I'm easily getting, I don't know that I've seen 900 megabits per second in my test, but I've definitely seen high 8s. And most of the time, upstream is faster than my downstream, John, believe it or not. Yeah, I don't know why, but it's definitely true. So, but I'm definitely getting that kind of thing. Now, where it gets really interesting is the backhaul between these. First of all, prior to this, the only Wi-Fi mesh that would give me any sort of consistent backhaul speeds across the driveway was Netgear's Orbi. And that's because the Orbi was using a 4x4 radio in it, and it would do fine. Now, my driveway and the office are about 75 feet apart. I put my router kind of in the back of the office, so adding another 10, 15 feet to it. And of course, walls and all of those things. And most of my Wi-Fi meshes wouldn't really go through the walls of the house and the office and get to where it needed to be, other than the Orbi. With the eero, I am easily getting, I'm just looking here, single hop connections from the bedroom to the office, 200 megabits per second across the driveway, consistent, like solid, low latency. So already Wi-Fi 6 makes a huge difference there. So if you've got range issues between your mesh points, Wi-Fi 6 is really going to help. The double hop stuff, I'm still getting good connections across it all. Like I said, very impressed with how well the Wi-Fi 6 stuff works. And the nice part about this one is it's from eero. So it comes with all the smarts that eero has that not every Wi-Fi mesh has. I've been, as you know, I've been very happy with eero. There's basically two companies that make Wi-Fi mesh that I find to be truly reliable, and it's eero and Plume, and Plume does not have Wi-Fi 6 yet. So here you go. Here's the option, right? And it's been working amazingly well. Like I said, the Wi-Fi backhaul blows me away. Having the Wi-Fi front haul be, 800 megabits per second in the same room, maybe 10 feet away, like that's great. I don't know how much that matters for my phone. I'm very much looking forward to a laptop with that tech in it. Like it'd be really nice if Apple were to release a laptop that had Wi-Fi 6 in it. It seems crazy to me that yours doesn't have it. Like why they're releasing phones with Wi-Fi 6 and not laptops it's probably a supply chain thing, but still, I don't know. Thoughts? What do you think, man? Yeah.
I've been running some benchmarks because I think I'm going to be going Wi-Fi 6 pretty soon.
Yeah.
I get 150 to 200 megabits per second throughout my house on the first generation eero, which I think is good.
Wi-Fi 5? You mean through your house? Yeah. And are you testing? You're testing with iPerf?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Do you find when you use iPerf that your upstreams are often faster than your downstreams, or is that just me?
I
don't know.
No.
Okay. Interesting. I'll put a link. I'm assuming you're using the iOS iPerf app. Is that right? Or are you just doing this from your Mac?
Hurricane Electric. No, on the iPhone, I run the Hurricane Electric app, which has iPerf among a whole bunch of other things in it.
Got it. Does it have the ability to go in both directions with iPerf? Because not every client.
I don't know. And actually, when you said that, the thing is, when I've run it, I run iPerf. I run an iPerf server on my Mini.
Okay, sure.
In front of me.
Yep.
And then I'll run the client, and that reports a number for one direction.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't done the opposite. I should look at that, though. I would expect the number would be the same, right?
Oh, no, because the different directions go different speeds for sure. So there is an iPerf app, and I thought it was free, but I could be wrong. I got to check this now. I'm putting it in the show notes while we're talking here, which is why I'm half distracted. But It's free. I put it in, and it's really easy. It's the best of the Wi-Fi of the iPerf apps, client apps that I've used. You still need to set up a server, but it's free, and it's really easy to say I want to go upload or download, and you can say to go for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, or even 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I was just testing, I guess, the download speed.
I think you were testing the upload speed. I think that's what iPerf normally does. I think I can't remember. It's a weird thing. I'd have to mess with it again, and I don't want to go too crazy with that.
Okay.
While I'm
or
podcasting
run this
here.
client. I'll run this.
Run
this client.
Yeah, I find this one to be really good. So, and obviously the link's in the show notes. So, but in terms of connectivity, reliability, all of that good stuff, there was a weird firmware issue right up front. But I think I had this thing on like day -1, and And then a firmware update came out that solved. There were some roaming issues, but they are resolved for anyone that's getting it. Certainly after you're hearing this, but even anybody that got it last week, you like that firmware was already available. So to solve the roaming issues, but that that's kind of how Mesh goes. There's always things to improve, and I like I said before, I like what how dedicated Eero's team is to making sure that happens. But yeah, I'm getting like really good, like my average connections around the house and even in the office with my, iPhone, what is it, 12 Pro or whatever it is, are on Wi-Fi 6 are 500 to 600. Now, to be fair, my laptop wireless is we'll get 400 to 500, in most of those places, but that's the max that will do, because that's what my Wi-Fi 5 Max is out at. There is no 700-800 for the laptop, because it just doesn't have that Wi-Fi 6. And I would, for backups and things like that, man, it'd be so good to not have to think, oh, I want to plug into Ethernet, because Ethernet only gets me 940. Like that's what I get with gigabit Ethernet. So to be able to get, reliably, my laptop is usually in the 200 to 300 range, like you're finding, to reliably get 500, 600, 700 megabits per second with my laptop and not have to think about plugging in to do like the first round of a Time Machine backup or whatever. That'd be really nice. Or downloading software updates, those big monster Big Sur updates, to just slurp them down. It'd be really nice. So one can be hopeful, John, that maybe this week I'll be able to order a laptop with Wi-Fi 6 in it. That would be a good thing. So I don't know. Yeah. Any other questions, thoughts about the Eero thing before we move on?
Nope.
I'm sure we'll talk more about it. Yeah. Cool. All right. You had a question that came in, John, about buying a new MacBook Pro from listener Dave. You want to take us to that, and we'll sort of roll with the punches there? Cool.
All right. So Dave writes in and says, I've been slammed at work for the past 3 months and haven't listened to almost any tech news. And I'm way behind on the podcast, but trying to catch up. Because of that, I don't feel confident that I can answer this question without help. Well, we're here to help. Is there any critical reason why I should not buy a new 16-inch MacBook Pro within the next couple of weeks? I know the hardware is moving to ARM over the next couple of years, but I'm mostly wondering if there is some Mac hardware announcement that is imminent. Well, yes, there is.
Yes, there is. That's right. Yeah.
Next week. And that I should definitely wait for. I have the need to run some developer tools, including VirtualBox VMs, and the need to run Logic Pro 10 with a number of third-party effects and plugins. The concern for me is switching to ARM may delay or eliminate the use of virtual machines running x86 Linux, and may delay or eliminate the use of third-party audio processing plugins. I'm okay with sitting with an Intel box for another 6 years. I just want to know if there is something about to happen that would make my purchasing of a 16-inch MacBook Pro now seem like a dumb move. And here's my reply, Dave. Since I purchased the new MacBook Pro 16-inch at the beginning of the year, here's my take on it. When I was upgrading from my MacBook Pro 15-inch mid-2012, the difference between that and this machine is just amazing. But then there's a 7-year delta. Everything, the weight, the form factor, the speed, the battery life, the sound, the touch bar, integrated Touch ID, and 4 USB-C ports are great. The only downside about the newer machines, of course, is that unlike the 2012, nothing is easy user serviceable. So you need to make the right choice regarding RAM and hard drive. I found 16 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte SSD works for me. And maybe for you too. The minor downside is that it is missing things I thought I would need, like dedicated ports versus USB-C dongles. But now that most of my lineup has USB-C, my Mini, my MacBook Pro, and now my iPad Air, being able to use the adapters across the machines is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I think his concern about virtualization and audio drivers are valid, especially with Big Sur coming up, because that's always an issue with usually with Apple major updates, is that it breaks the audio stuff.
Yeah.
And also, even on Intel, due to updating the method of kernel extensions, there are things that won't work as you expect with Apple Silicon under Big Sur. So I'm planning to use this thing for probably 6 years, Dave. But I'm thinking he could probably get a good deal on the current MacBook Pro Intel in the refurb store.
Yeah, especially like next week, because the show will release on Monday. So depending on when you listen, either tomorrow, today, or yesterday, the new Apple laptops presumably will be or have been announced if we trust the rumor mill. And it sounds like we're going to get an Air and a 13-inch Air and a 13-inch Pro are going to be announced and released imminently. This will all be old news by the time most of you hear this. But the 16-inch version of the ARM machine will, I think, also, it appears to be coming soon. Now, I would say I would not buy anything until Apple's announcement happens, even if you choose after the announcement to stick with Intel for this purchase. You will almost certainly be able to get a better deal, either directly from Apple, either via the news store or the refurb store, or there are going to be lots of people looking to unload their relatively new and gently used 16-inch MacBooks Pro for the new Apple Silicon stuff. Because there's a lot of, generally the power users, early adopters are the ones that are going to be doing this. However, for you specifically, listener Dave, your concerns about virtualization and audio drivers are very, very good. And I think sticking with Intel, and very specifically sticking with Catalina and not getting to Big Sur anytime soon, is going to be really smart. Without breaking any specific confidences, I was having a conversation with someone at a third-party audio plugin company recently. It was sort of a not work conversation, but their advice was, you do not move your machine to Big Sur for a while. Let the kinks get ironed out by other people. Obviously, all of the major third-party audio plugin people have been testing this stuff internally, but they also know that really the proof is in sort of the public pudding, where you've got multiple things interacting with each other. Audio is a very real-time thing. So Big Sur, no bueno for any of that. And that's something I would have done regardless. I generally upgrade the machine in the studio here, John, just before WWDC each year. So we've had, 6-ish months of whatever OS is that. And sometimes not even that quickly. Like sometimes it'll be, I'll lap myself with this machine, which is fine because the audio stuff, the real-time stuff is so finicky. So I take my time in upgrading this machine. I firmly believe that Big Sur will be required for any ARM-based or Apple Silicon-based Macs, we should call it, because it's not quite ARM. It's ARM-ish, right? So yeah, it's ARM Plus really is kind of the right way to think of Apple Silicon, I guess. So yeah, I think your advice is right. For listener Dave, I agree. Stick with Intel, but for everybody,
he followed up. And he followed up and he bought my pitch. Is that for what he does, getting a MacBook Pro 16-inch running Catalina works. And then, if he wants to ease into Big Sur at some point, and he can still run his virtualizations, which, again, that's a question mark now as to, I think it's not a question mark. Well, no, that is. Will you be able to run a Windows virtual machine on the Apple Silicon?
It won't.
The answer right now is,
It won't be virtual. It will be potentially emulated. We know that you can. But he specifically said he needs to run Linux virtual machines, and those we've already seen. Right? Oh, Apple showed those at WWDC. Okay. So yeah, but probably they were virtualizing an ARM version of Linux, not an Intel version of Linux, which isn't necessarily a problem. Right. But again, eyes wide open, this might be a problem for you. So, but yeah, Windows, I mean, it's not Intel. So you would either be virtualizing an ARM version of Windows, which is possible, available, and not entirely as capable as we would all want, or you would have to emulate Windows, and we don't like there's a big question mark there. Yeah. Day one, no, you're not going to be doing that unless we get some announcement that we don't know about at the time that we're recording this. So, but this is very specific to listener Dave and good to talk about and good to identify. But for the rest of us, not for me here in the studio, but for me here in the office, I would absolutely go to Apple Silicon on day one. I have no hesitation there whatsoever. I've been running Big Sur on my laptop for a while here in prep for it coming out. And so we can talk to you folks about it and all of that. And it's been remarkably stable. I don't even think about the fact that I'm running Big Sur anymore, except sometimes it's like, oh, right, the menus are different. Oh, sure, right, it's Big Sur. But other than that, I really like it. And I would have zero hesitation. And I intend to order some version of the laptop that will be announced this week for me. If it were an iMac, I would order that too, and it would replace my iMac in the office. Like I am not fearful of what these machines, what the experience of using these machines will be like. It's not Apple's first rodeo with a hardware transition, and it's not. It's also not a new platform for Apple. Remember, our iPhones and iPads have been running Apple Silicon chips for a long time. So I'm really not concerned about it. And I think, I know Apple needed to shine this light here, right? They couldn't just start shipping Apple Silicon based Macs without saying something. Like that would be irresponsible for the reasons we talked about with listener Dave. But quite frankly, most people do not need to care about what brand or style of chip is running in their devices. And the iPhone is perfect proof of that, right? The iPad is perfect proof of that. We geeks, we certainly know, oh, well, it's got the A14 chip. We're very excited about that. Look at all the things it'll let us do. But it's more about look at all the things it will let us do, not, the limitations of running, Apple Silicon versus Intel. And I really don't think for those of us that are running, Mail and even Word and Pages and Numbers and Safari and Messages and the things that we do in Slack and, the things that we do all day, I don't think it's going to matter what CPU is in there. So, but it is good to look at your use cases and like Dave did here, identify. I'm sure Dave also uses Safari and Mail and, Slack and all of those other things. And he's not worried about those, but he is worried about emulation and his third-party audio plugins as well. He should be. So it is worth taking a look at your workflow and saying, okay, what, if anything, would I be giving up or potentially be inheriting a headache from doing this? And like I said, he identified those, and it's good for all of us to do that. We're here for you. Like I said earlier in the show, feedback at Mac-CSF-TextSniper.
Did you say feedback at Mac-CSF-TextSniper.com?
Yeah, I did. We've said it many. I love that we keep saying it. It's awesome. Or premium at Mac-CSF-TextSniper.com if you are one of our premium contributors. We love that too. Where are we? Oh, we got time. Good. We've been through so much this. It's been so action packed. I'm surprised that we still have a little bit of time left. We could end this show now. We could. Would you folks like an hour-long Mac Geek Gab or what we've sort of standardized on, the 90-minute Mac Geek Gab? And I will say that 15 plus years ago when we started this, it was a 45-minute show. That was our goal. Obviously, we, didn't hold the reins all that tight. But it's because we have so much fun and you have so many questions. Speaking of which, Sam has a question for us. Sam's having some trouble with photos. Sam says, I'm currently using iCloud Photo Library, and I have just over 70,000 photos. All my devices, iPhone, iPad, and Mac, are set to optimize storage for space purposes. So that means I currently do not have a full res copy of my photos locally, and they are only stored in full res on iCloud. I've heard of people's libraries getting corrupted for some reason or another, and that they have ended up losing all or some of their photos. I'm concerned that if anything was to happen to my photos on iCloud, I will lose all my pics. So therefore, I'm thinking of how to have a backup of all my photos in full res on my Drobo. Now, he doesn't say whether this is a direct attached or network attached Drobo, so we kind of have to, there's two very different paths. He says, so my question is, I'm trying to use the export command under the file menu of photos. I've tried the regular export as well as the export unmodified originals options, and I've also tried to do this in JPEG TIFF or PNG. However, every time I try this, I end up with errors. Error messages just say unknown error followed by a number, either 4 or 256. And he attached a screenshot so we could see unknown error 256. There you go. He says, so I'm basically able to see all the photos on iCloud, but I cannot export them. So I am concerned. Can you help, please? All right. So you want me to start with this one, John? I know we both kind of use iCloud photos. I'm happy to start, or if you've got thoughts, you can jump in at any time.
The one immediate thought that I had, Dave, so if you go into Photos, and you go to Preferences, let me bring it up. So let's see, Preferences, iCloud. There's a checkbox for iCloud Photos, and it sounds like we've done that.
Right.
My one suggestion, and the thing is, this is how I'm set up. One suggestion would be, and then you have 2 radio buttons below that. Download originals to this Mac, which is what I'm set up for, I think, on all my machines, or optimize Mac storage, which sounds like that's what he's set up for right now. So a very simple suggestion would be to expand the disk space on one of your machines and switch to download originals mode if you can, if it's not too huge.
I think that's what he wants to do, right? And he doesn't say whether if this is a laptop or a desktop of some sort, of Mac Mini or an iMac. I'm going to answer this assuming it's a laptop that doesn't have enough internal storage for his whole photos library, because otherwise, like you said, that would be the answer. Is attach some. It needs to be direct attached storage. You cannot save your photo library directly to network storage and expect anything other than headaches. We've proven this here. We try regularly, we test it, and it's a headache. So yeah, if you can have direct attached storage that is big enough, either internal or external, to house your photos library, then what like John's advice is exactly what you want to do. And it sounds like that's where listener Sam is aiming. But let's assume, for the sake of argument, that he or perhaps other listeners out there, right, don't,
just as a benchmark,
yeah,
and just as a benchmark. So right now, my photo library is almost exactly 40,000 photos, and if I look here, I think it's about 200 gigs.
I'm hearing John in Cylon mode. I can't tell if that's just me or if it's all of us. So it's I'm going to try resetting something here.
That's been happening.
That's we can't understand you, John. All right, try again. Are you still in Cylon mode? Oh, all right. Do what you did before to reset yourself with I think resetting Mimo Live was what you did. Let's hope that comes back. Yes. Because John had some great information for us here. So are you back? I don't think John's back. I think John is, you're not muted here. Hang on. Try that again. This is bizarre. All right, hang on. It might be on my end. Let's see what we can do here. Right. All right. Am I back? Yes, I think I'm back. John, are you back? John?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, we're back. Sorry about the little silence there. I meant to pause the show, but I did not. Okay, so say that again.
So here we go.
Say that again.
Just as a benchmark, I have about 40,000 photos in my library.
Yep.
And that takes up, I'm looking right now, about 140 gigs. So in his case, let's figure you probably need about 250 gigs to do, right? Just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
That's a good estimate.
Sure.
So you need 250 gigs of space on whatever local drives that you have. And if you don't, then we'll get your suggestion, Dave.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. That's why I didn't want to just plow ahead here. This is interesting though, this audio problem. We've had this twice now. So, okay. So assuming that it is a machine that can't have external storage direct attached full time, like a laptop, and that there's not enough storage internal to deal with this. Right. I've got a couple of ideas. Number one would be create a separate user account and connect that to the same iCloud account that you use, which is totally doable, and set your photos library to be on a piece of direct attached storage, but one that only needs to be attached temporarily, because hear me out. Set it to download all originals, like John said, and only log into that account when you are somewhere where you can have it direct attached, even calendar that event. So, every Saturday afternoon, you plug your machine in to, power and this drive or whatever it is. You log into this other account, you let it slurp down all the photos that you've taken in the last week. And now, boom, you've got this local copy. You eject the drive, or you log out of the account, you eject the drive from the other side, right, from your normal account, and you're good to go. And so now you've got this account that's there slurping down your pictures full time, but you've also got your other account that is your portable account that only optimizes the storage locally, as you're currently doing. You don't change anything else about that. And then that way you've kind of got the best of both worlds. It's not perfect, but with one computer, it allows you to do this, right? So that's certainly one way. The other way is to download them from iCloud.com/photos. Now, you can only download 1,000 at a time, so this is going to be a bit of a painful process, but not terrible. The first thing I would say is, if you're assuming you're using Safari to do this, set your Safari downloads location to this external drive, because otherwise your downloads folder is going to get filled up very, very quickly. And then go to iCloud.com/photos, go to the photos section of your library, or you can go to smart albums that you've created, which, as you go forward might not be a bad thing, and select the photos you want to download. And what's really cool, John, Command A in the iCloud Photos web interface will select all of the photos, not just select the website, which is cool. So it'll select all 70,000 of your photos. Then you click download and it'll tell you can only download 1,000, which is fine. The download icon is in the upper right. It's like a cloud with an arrow pointing down on the Safari or on the iCloud.com/photos web interface. Wait for the download to complete, do the next 1,000, do the next 1,000. So, not perfect. If you have that direct attached storage, I think creating the second user account is probably the simplest path here to making sure you've got everything. And then, if the time ever comes that you have larger storage internal to your, internal to a future laptop or whatever, you can move that library in and then just point to it with any of your user accounts and you're good to go. So that's what I would do. But yeah, good stuff. I don't know. Fun. Any more thoughts on that, John, before we move on?
No, I think we're good.
Cool. All right. Listener Andrew, speaking of things like backups and such, listener Andrew says, quick question. I would like to take my late 2013 MacBook Pro into Apple for a battery swap. I bought an almost identical 2015 MacBook Pro to use while this earlier one is being worked on. I can certainly clone the internal drive and install it on the new MacBook Pro so that everything would be the same. But I have many online services that sync to my Mac that I don't want to disturb, including things like Backblaze or Apple's photo library or Apple Notes or all of Dropbox, all of that stuff. Any suggestions for how I can avoid getting caught? And he says, ideally in the future, I would have this new MacBook Pro on standby by somehow running a carbon copy cloner clone or some other routine on a daily basis. But it all seems fraught with danger. So this is interesting, right? Because we always talk about the value of having a clone for exactly this purpose, right? Like something happens, usually by surprise, but even, intentionally, to the machine we rely on every day. How do we go about using that clone? What happens when it's time to use that clone? And what happens when it's time to use that clone temporarily? So there's a couple ways to approach this, right? But one of us, so we should all make a list of the services that we would want to disable in this kind of restoring from a clone, but not really restoring scenario. And the good thing is that, two of the ones that you mentioned, Dropbox and Backblaze, perform their service based on the unique drive identifier. I think it's the UDID, or it might be the UUID. I can't remember what drives have, but whatever that unique identifier is, they won't run if it's a different identifier. You have to sort of re-authenticate them to work. And so that's helpful, but it's not helpful for things like notes or things like that. But my question is, how bad is it if you run from your clone? Now, I know you don't want your clone. Maybe you do want your clone backing up to, Backblaze and that sort of thing if you're running from it for a little while. Like, how bad is it to have your clone syncing all these things, knowing that when your old machine comes back, you would copy the clone back to it? And maybe that's the part that's missing here is, yes, presumably when that computer comes back, it will not have been wiped, right? But I think it should be wiped. I think if you're going to clone it, and then use the clone, I think that new clone needs to be treated as at least your temporary master. And then clone it and then wipe the machine before you send it into Apple so that you're not sending it in with any of your data or anything like that. That way they can test it and know that the problem is hardware, not software, or whatever all that is. And then when that machine comes back, you clone from your new master to that computer and you're good to go. I think that's the right way to treat a clone here, is start using the clone and then you're good to go. I have more thoughts on this, John, but do you have any before I keep rambling here? Any thoughts?
That's pretty much what I do.
Yeah. Right? Like, it makes sense
to clone.
Okay. Oh, so is that right? You treated the clone as your new master in essence?
For a while, and then, if everything's dandy. Right.
And then you put it back. Yeah. I think that's the right way to do it. And then that way you're not worried and you can just do what you want to do and leverage the benefits of having this clone that has go ahead.
It helped me diagnose this Evernote thing, because what happened is when I booted from my clone before it had upgraded to the newer version of the Evernote client, it would work on my clone. And that actually is that helped me diagnose the problem.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, well, why does it work on the clone and not work on this? Oh, because the version of Evernote is different.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So the only other thing I can think of, John, and I, this is because I have multiple machines here. Right. And I started thinking, okay, what would I do if I needed to send the Office machine in for a repair, similar to what Andrew's talking about here? And I certainly have a clone of it because every day that's what I do. But, I could live, and sometimes I do, like sometimes I'll find myself here in the studio and just working for the day for whatever reason. I've maybe finished recording a show. I see an email that needs my attention. And then suddenly, 3 hours later, I'm still here. And it's because my email, my calendar, my FileMaker database that we use, Slack, messages, all of the things that I do in my daily life, other than recording podcasts, which is very specific to this machine. But other than that, they're all kind of doable from any of my, I live on 3 machines, which is amazing, right? But really it's 2. It's the one in the office and it's this one here. And then the laptop is... That's why I put Big Sur on the laptop, because if something were to go terribly wrong, it's like I can deal with the laptop being in limp mode, But I don't want either of these other machines in limp mode. But if one of them's gone, I probably wouldn't I would clone the machine in the office for all the reasons we just talked about, so I could clone back when it came back, and I had an easy path there. But I don't, like, this machine is set up just fine to work from. And if there was some piece of data that only existed on the machine in the office and I needed it in those, whatever, let's say a week where that machine was gone for repairs or whatever. Well, I've got the clone and I've got a myriad different type of backups that I could go and use to surgically retrieve that piece of data and then keep trucking. But again, because everything is sort of synced, I don't, Yeah, I don't know that I would, in that position, I don't know that I would use a clone. In fact, I definitely wouldn't. If something, like if the Office iMac, like the power supply just died midday one day, I would just get up and come up here. That would be it. And then I would just keep trucking along. And then, of course, when I had time, I would, I'd mourn the loss of the power supply and find a solution path. But,
Yeah, I think what I did the last time I had to send a machine in to get repaired,
yeah,
I would run off the clone. But before I did that, I would make a clone of the clone.
Smart.
Or I would make 2 clones.
Yeah. Right. No, that makes sense.
Have the one that's frozen, and then I would do my day-to-day stuff on, the other clone until I got the machine back. And then typically, unless there was a reason not to, I would copy back the clone that I was using temporarily back to the main machine. And then everything was great. So.
Yeah. 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 I think, yeah. I like these paths. It's good. We got time for one more. John, you want to take us to Rob?
I'll take us to Rob. Rob has a quick question here. Not sure if you guys covered it yet, but what are your thoughts on the T2 chip exploit? It is my understanding it cannot be patched. Do you think Intel units will see a fix? Rather scary, I think. What's he talking about?
Yeah, what's he talking about?
Willis. Or rerun. All right, so I did some digging on this because I heard mumblings of this too. Here's what I think is a good summary. It's an article over at Wired, and the title of it is Apple's T2 security chip has an unfixable flaw. Oh, that's clickbait. No,
that's right.
It's kind of accurate. And they go into some detail, but basically what to condense it, someone figured out a way to jailbreak a T2 chip and be able to either install new things. I think they mentioned you could play Doom on your touch bar, you could run Linux, but it also opened up the possibility of somebody disabling things like system integrity protection or getting your file vault keys, which is bad. But here's the caveat. I've done security for a while, and the thing is, you got to put this in context. And here's the paragraph in their article that puts this in, I think, important context. There are a few important limitations of the jailbreak, though, that keep this from being a full-blown security crisis. The first is that an attacker would need physical access to the target devices in order to exploit them. The tool can only run off of another device over USB. This means hackers cannot remotely mass infect every Mac that has a T2 chip. An attacker could jailbreak a target device and then disappear, but the compromise isn't persistent, and it ends when the T2 chip is rebooted. So as long as you make sure your Mac is in an environment where somebody could get physical access to your machine and ports, I think you should be okay. But it sounds like fixing the issue is not a simple matter of a software update. So, and I think he got back to me and he's like, well, what if somebody does steal my machine and knows enough to run this exploit and they could get my data? And that's a valid concern. My suggestion would be, in that case, you get something like find my whatever, register your machine with it, because when you register either your Mac OS or your iOS device with Find My, there's 2 options that I think are on every screen, and one is lock it and the other is erase it.
Right. Yeah.
So if somebody does run off with your machine, get to another machine and find your machine. I guess the only thing in that case is that it has to be connected to a network. So, but once it's on a network, you should be able to control it and erase it. That's pretty much what I got.
Yeah, that's interesting. Huh. Yeah. Physical access. It's one of those things like I always operate that as soon as someone has physical access to my machine, they have access to my data. It just kind of is how it goes. But I mean, I guess you could also encrypt anything that is truly, knowing that this exploit exists with someone who has physical access to your Mac. You could operate, if you need to operate, assuming that if someone gets physical access, I still don't want certain data to be accessible. you could put that in an encrypted disk image, that data, and then it doesn't matter if they unravel whatever you've got going on with your T2 chip. The data in your encrypted disk image is effectively double encrypted, right? Because it's encrypted on your drive, but then in order to access it, you've got to decrypt the disk image, and that is with your key. Don't store the key in your keychain, right? For obvious reasons. Store it, somewhere else. If you can keep it in your head reliably, that's the best place, but it's also the worst place, So that would be where I'd go with this is that, or depending on what the data is, can you store it in a thing like 1Password or something? Like, is it compartmentalizable enough that it could be stored in notes there? At the very least, the key to decrypt the disk image could be stored there, and that's outside of the realm of the T2 chip. But any of these things, we always talk about security versus convenience, and we choose our spots on the continuum there. The T2 chips offers a lot of security with a lot of convenience, but it's not perfect. And, there you go. So, because somebody like I'm sure the key for my T2 chip is massive, but all you need to know is the password for my Mac, and you can get at all the data that it can see. So that, that's the hole right there. And it's probably not good to tell you that the key for each of my Macs is exactly the same. So that would be bad. You definitely wouldn't want to go on like a podcast and tell that to tens of thousands of people, John. I think that'd be a bad idea. Kiwi Graham asked, does the T2 chip give access to the keychain? I believe the answer there is no, but that's why I say that your keychain unlock password is the biggest hole that we all have, because that opens both your entire, it opens three things. Your entire Mac, it lets you log in, it lets you unlock your keychain, and because of the first one, it gets you through whatever you've got going on with the T2 chip and the encryption. So like that's the big hole there, I think, because that's the kind of thing somebody could easily look over your shoulder and see you type and, that sort of thing. So that's what I got. I don't know, man. It's all
another thing you may want to look at. I've run into this vendor. I should get one of these, but they do make secure external drive enclosures.
True.
That either have like a fingerprint or a pin or something, and if you don't enter it, you don't get at the data. SecureDrive.com is the one company I've run into that makes but look to be very nice, and they're I think FIPS 140 what is it these days? 140-2 certified. FIPS being Federal Information Processing Standards. And the last I worked on a device like this, one of the criteria for it is that if somebody tries to open it, it'll erase itself.
Oh, wow.
It was actually fun. I was working on, when I was doing the postal thing, I had a project where I had to work on one of our secure devices that, kept track of funds and stuff like that. And they were FIPS certified. What they had was a security wrap. And the thing is, if you broke the security wrap, you broke the circuit and the device would erase itself.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry. All I can keep thinking about is wanting to, I'm not going to do this, but wanting to title the episode, John talks about the time he went postal. It's just like, I don't know why. It's just swimming in my head. Yeah. Now we as developers had access to a special version that wouldn't do this because that would make development difficult if it kept erasing itself. Yes, of course. Yeah. Huh, that's pretty cool.
But there are a class of devices. Yeah, but there are a class of devices, and it looks like they have even thumb drives. Well, so
right.
So if you got, you can do what you suggested, but this is like the next step.
Totally.
You can certainly create an encrypted software vault. These are encrypted hardware vaults,
right?
If you will.
Right. That's pretty good. That's good. I love. See, I'm glad we went the extra 30 minutes. I know it's not extra, but we talked about this a while ago. All right, it's time though, because we're really near the end here, so it's time to bring the band in from jamming outside, which is the only place bands can really jam these days. So it's just how it goes, pandemicing it all.
Yeah, I've been seeing in my feeds pictures of bands playing outside and being
Yeah, I got one. Yeah, I got one gig in on Friday night that was a truly last minute thing. Like I woke up Friday morning thinking I didn't have anything, and then Gary from the wedding band actually texted me. He's like, "You guys want to play at the restaurant tonight outside?" I'm like, yep, absolutely. So we got to do that. But the way we do it is we make sure everybody that's on stage together has been negative COVID tested within the past week. And we're all kind of laying low anyway, but that's how we get it done. And there was one guy that hadn't been tested. Thankfully, I have a small stock of at-home rapid tests, so we got him tested. Then we were able to jam out. So nothing's perfect, but outdoors and all of that. Mm-hmm. It's good. Yep. All right. Well, that's what I got. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks everybody in the chat room at live.macgeekgab.com for being here with us, making sure everything goes smoothly. Because sometimes things don't go smoothly, and it's really helpful to have you all here and tell us what we're missing and all that good stuff. It's good. I do want to thank everybody. I mentioned it earlier. Premium at MacGeekGab.com is one of the perks that you get of being a Mac Geek Gab premium contributor. You can learn more about that at MacGeekGab.com/premium, or simply MacGeekGab.com will point you there too. It is not mandatory. It is appreciated. It is a part of what makes Mac Geek Gab work for us here. But I do want to take a minute and thank all of you whose contributions have come in recently. So we have James from Melville, thank you. Joseph from Marietta, Charles from Kobe, Gary from McKees Rocks, Robert from Columbiana, Stephen from Plainfield, Barry from, who knows where Barry is? I think Barry's been doing some safe travel again too. We've got Kenneth from Greenberg, Thomas from Chicago, Keith from Kirby Cross, Charles from Mechanicsburg, James from Charlotte, Richard from Salem, Robert from Clearwater, Stephen from Costa Mesa, Everett from Marina. I don't think you're in Marina. I think it's Everett from Denver. Olga from Bellevue, Lou from South Burlington, Jason from Charlestown, Scott from Columbia, Gary from Babylon, Paul from Fishers, Mark from Milford, Scott from Columbia, David from Nashville. I miss Nashville. Peter from Fort Myers, Robert from Paso Robles, Neil from West Hartford, Andrew from Bellingen, Lou from Albuquerque, Charles from Midlothian, Brian, I always feel like I'm talking about somewhere in Lord of the Rings when I say Midlothian. I love that. Brian from Ocean City, thank you to all of you. You all rock. Whether or not you live in a place that sounds like it's from Lord of the Rings, you rock. We appreciate it. It's awesome. All right. You got anybody to thank, anything to share before we play the outro music, the true outro music, and make it all happen? All right. Well, we will see you next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for visiting our sponsors, expressvpn.com/MGG, Readdle.com, barebones.com, of course. Our ongoing sponsors, smilesoftware.com/podcast, maxsales.com with Otherworld Computing, linode.com/MGG. Go sign up for what they've got, man. That deal's ending. $100. Thanks, everybody. Fun stuff. So wait a minute, John, you got us started. I miss being together. We talked about a lot of either gathering or not being able to gather. And so I am reminded fondly of one of the last times we had the Mac Geek Gab family together at MacStock. And I think they have something to say, which is to say we all have something to say. Stay safe. Enjoy yourselves, and what was it again?
Don't get caught.
That's right. Cool. See you next time.
Made on a Mac.
And we're out. Cool.